far-right extremist looks like. But of course, far-right extremists cannot really be defined whenever you ask someone, when you hear people repeating it because they heard it in the media propaganda, or they heard the ministers say it. Because it's always said hand in hand with words of agitator, hateful, bigoted, anti-this, phobic, that. So it must be wrong, right? It must be a bad thing. But if you look at the dictionary definition of far-right, it means somebody whose political views are of the most conservative. Conservative means to have traditional values. So if that's what far-right is, I'm happy to be it. Because if we look what the definition of the left is in 2023, we find words such as progressive, inclusive, all these kind of things. These seem to be the people that find it perfectly okay to show explicit adult content to children. These seem to be the people who have no problem with gender ideology being taught as a fact in our schools. That's what left is. So if that's what left is, let's say we're far right. Now, as they said, I'm a member of the Natural Women's Council, and we are actively affiliated with the Irish Parents Alliance, the Irish Education Alliance, Lawyers for Justice Ireland, and any human being who is willing to stand for the sanctity of upholding the rights of children, to stand to not corrupt children. Any human being, I don't care if you're political, apolitical, who you are, what your creed is, what your background is. If your primary objective is to keep children at the foremost, which is your responsibility as an adult human being, protecting children, nothing comes ahead of that. So I wanted to talk to you today about our country. And it was founded on Bunreacht na hÉireann, which is the highest law in this country. Make no mistake about that. No legislation that they bring in, no wishy-washy labels, nothing can be higher than Bunreacht na hÉireann in this country. Bunreacht na hÉireann itself was founded on natural law. It's derived from natural law. And if anyone's interested in reading about natural law, Mark Passio, if you want to go into his website, he's a great resource. Now, the rights that are written in Bunreacht na hÉireann, you see words like natural, inalienable, all these things. The Constitution doesn't give us these rights, it doesn't gift us these rights, it's merely stating them for us, because as human beings, we have these rights innately. We don't have to do anything to get them. We have them all the time, and we have all of them. We don't have to have some of them and to forfeit others. That's not how it works, but that's what they'll have you believe right now, with how they're structuring things. Because if you look throughout the country, I'm going to give you a few examples and paraphrase what's in Bunreacht na hÉireann, right? The children in this country have a right to free primary education. We have a right to peacefully assemble. We have a right to express our opinions and beliefs. We have a right to religious freedom and to express our religious freedom without facing any discrimination. The mothers and fathers in this country are the primary educators of their children. That includes religion, that includes any opinions they have, that's social, every single thing. That's not limited to history, geography and maths, that's everything that falls under education for our children. And let me repeat ourselves, we have all of these things just by being human beings, right? We don't get to have one or two of them but then have to forfeit the others. But what do we have at the moment coming in from this September? We have every single school in this country teaching gender ideology as a fact. So how then can our children avail of their right to free primary education without forfeiting their right to religious expression and our right to freedom of expression and opinion, without their parents forfeiting their right as primary educators? Because gender ideology being taught as a fact is in contradiction to my beliefs and a lot of people's beliefs in this country. I'd go as far as to say most beliefs. Now, in this country, you're free to have any beliefs and any opinions, and it doesn't impinge on anyone else's. Me believing something doesn't impinge on anyone else's beliefs, but truth is impenetrable and it's non-changeable. It is what it is. Now, Sorry, I got distracted by the dogs. I'm a big fan of dogs. I get very easily distracted. Now, as I say, it's in all the countries. Now, if we have atheists and agnostics living in this country, they have an option to send their children to one of the non-denominational schools or the community schools. Not all of our schools are Christian schools, so they have their rights unimpinged. But we have nowhere to send our kids now without forfeiting our rights. So you must stand up for this, because having all the rights in the world mean nothing if you're not willing to express them. And if you're not willing to stand for them and fight for them when you see that they're being impinged. Because these people want to create a false mass consensus that everyone's in agreement that this is the new truth. Well, they can have their new normal, but they're not going to impinge on my rights, and they're not going to impinge on my child's rights. So to talk about ways in which they're creating this falsehood, they're creating this idea that they can make our rights extinct. They can't, they're under natural law. We've got mass marketing. We've got a saturation from every single angle, from celebrity endorsement to daytime TV endorsement, social media influencer endorsing this ideology. You have every single mainstream journalist, propaganda peddler in this country singing from the same hymn sheet in lockstep, using the same words to describe us that seem bad, and using all the words that are good words to describe the left which seem good. It's not real. They did not consult the parents before bringing this in. What they did was they did a little tiny thing with a government NGO, an LGBT NGO, of about 1,000 people, and they said that's the consultancy of the parents. It's not real. Sorry, I'm losing my whole foot. I didn't write a speech. Now, another thing that they have for us to self-censor, they've got the hate speech legislation. They have this in other countries. Make no mistake, you don't have to do it because it is nonsense. As I said, the highest law in this country is Bunrach na Héireann. That's the highest law. So by bringing in all the legislation, hate speech legislation they want, it does not nullify our constitutional rights, our innate human rights. It doesn't nullify it. So if I'm to be taken to court on hate speech because I said there are two sexes, a judge would then have to rule against and say, you don't have any religious rights, you don't have any religious expression, because the first page of my doctrine says, and I'm paraphrasing, that there are only two sexes. A judge would have to rule, you don't have a right to freedom of expression. No judge is going to rule this. The only reason that this hate speech legislation is being put forward is to incite fear so that you will self-censor yourself. That's the only reason, that's the only purpose. Do not let them self-censor yourself. Don't whisper your opinions, say them out loud. Now more than ever is when you need to express them. If you don't use your human rights, there is no point in having them. They're already creating this false mass consensus. So if we keep going, they're going to create an illusion that our human rights are extinct. Don't let them do that. So in the nature of practicing what I preach, I'm also going to explain something about myself at the end here. But I'm going to say, first of all, that you have options, and this is one of the ways that you can exercise them. Go onto the Parents' Rights Alliance website and download the opt-out letter. Fill it in and give it to your child's principal, your child's school principal, to opt your children out. That is essentially exercising your rights as the primary educator and your religious rights, if that's what it falls under, and your freedom of expression by telling the principal that you do not consent to them teaching this gender ideology to your child, and therefore it is illegal and unconstitutional for them to go ahead and do it anyway. The be-all and the end-all. It's not ideal. The ideal would be that it's not in any of the schools, or at least not in most of them. But if you submit this, and if enough parents submit it, then they will have to face the fact that, well, the majority of parents simply don't want this. It's breaking down the false mass consensus. They're not going to have a situation where they're taking the majority of children out of class to indoctrinate one or two kids that are left in there. They're not going to have that. They're going to have to. And we have handed out over 200,000 leaflets nationwide, and most parents don't know that this is going on. They don't know this is going on. So printing this opt-out letter for yourself isn't enough. You need to stand and face these labels in the face and say, go on, take your best shot, because they are not truth. you throw at me? Truth is what it is. I know what I am. I don't need anyone to affirm me. That makes no sense. My truth is what it is. My beliefs are what they are. No words you say can take them. So stick your head up out of the trenches and send this opt-out letter PDF and the leaflet information what's in the school system to every parent group that you're on. Sports groups, school parent groups. Send it to everyone. Now you might get called homophobic. Send it out there, because it only works if the majority parents are doing this. The majority of people are opting out. And then additionally, we have a board of management letter where the principals themselves can opt out their entire school out of this curriculum. But now, as I say, over 200,000 leaflets nationwide. We have seen the principals. Some of them are far left. Some of them are cowards. Because that's all we have at the moment. That's all we have. There is no grey in this. You're either fighting for children or you're enabling the destruction. There's no grey anymore. So imagine then the principal in your school is getting inundated with opt-out letters, and you're giving them the board of management PDF and saying, have you sent this? What can they say? They have a stack this high. So it's either going to empower those principals to go with the board of management letters who are otherwise